Colonel.
Hey, Sam Wakefield here. Welcome back to Close It Now, the podcast where basically you can tap in next level psychological thinking about sales. We get all the way down to the nuts and bolts and nitty gritty, but also, what is not in any other space in the industry that I have found. And if you found some, recommend it to me because we all learn from each other, is thinking about HVAC sales on a different level. And that's why I like to bring in so many people from outside the industry, because it forces us to think outside of our box. So my guest today, I'm super excited to have him. He is, if you haven't heard the last one, go back to the podcast that we did before, 5 Essential Networking Connections on how to get more leads with Mr. Jimmie Jays. He is back. And I'm super excited to have him back. He is definitely given a lot of his time to us to be able to next level. You know, who doesn't want to next level your game? If you're a $500,000 a year salesperson, it's time to be $1 million. If you're $1 million, it's time to be 2. If you're 2, it's time to be 4. And it's all possible in the industry. If you're 4, it's time to be 10, right? So a quick introduction for Mr. Jimmie Jays. I've known him for quite a while. He is a business coach currently working with a company called Apricot Solar. He's a business coach for the company, also works in the field himself. So he's not just coming at this from a overview trainer manager perspective. He also is fleshing this out, walking every single day, doing sales himself. He's coached this company though, and here's these numbers that are going to blow your mind. From zero, when the company started, to $134 million in a single year in 5 years alone. So that's one of the main reasons I reached out to him. It's like, anybody that can help a company see that type of growth has serious wisdom they can impart to us here on the Close It Now podcast. His goal is to create 12 solar millionaires, 12 solar millionaires in just over 12 months. So in a year, somebody's personal income going from 0 to $1 million in 12 months. So that's his goal. Clearly he can, if you can scale it on business level, you can scale it on an individual level. I'm excited to talk to him today. Mr. Jimmie Jays, welcome to the episode.
Thank you so much. Great to be here and excited to be talking to your Close It Now community.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's so cool when we, when you develop a group that is so focused on one thing. It's mind blowing what they can accomplish. The things we've seen our network support each other and help each other learn and grow. In this last couple of years of since Close It Now started, we're now entering year 3. So this last month in April this is June. We're in June now. This year was a 2-year anniversary. So we're a couple months into year 3, which is exciting. So we've got a fun topic today. This one is going to be a good one. I know a lot of people, when they talk about scaling and growing the business, their biggest thing that I hear from my business owners, from my managers, all the different people always reach out to me. How do we find good people? There's so many. The biggest complaint is there's just a lack of qualified people in the industry. How do we find them? So today's topic, hiring and building a team of HVAC professionals. How do we do that? Clearly, you can't scale this fast by only finding people within a specific niche. You've got to go outside that. So let's unpack that. Let's break that apart a little bit. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, well, first of all, the very first thing that I would say is I know that you've got a diverse, audience of listeners, and there's people on the line who are company owners, and there's people on the line who maybe are just getting started in HVAC, and there's some people on the line that do $1 million or 2, in sales every year, just working in the field in HVAC. And so what I want you to know is that this conversation applies to everyone. Okay, this conversation applies to everyone. It doesn't matter if you are a business owner or not. You want to think like a business owner. And unless you plan to crawl through attics until you're 50, right, you need to have some sort of a way to get leverage, And it doesn't matter the space. If there's people in pest control, like, do you want to knock doors until you're 50? So it doesn't matter the space. Okay. You got to find a way to get leverage. Otherwise you're going to work until the day that you die. So
Sure.
you really need to learn how do you find and build effective teams of people in whatever industry you're in. And again, if you're just selling right now, that's okay. Like, how can you find and train great people to bring into the company to help your company grow? If your company grows that you're working with, right, there's going to be more leadership positions. There's going to be more opportunities. So think like a business owner, even if you don't own the business, and think about, what can I do to help this company grow? And if you get good at finding and recruiting and training people, who can be, closers in HVAC, I promise you there will be opportunities that come your way. So the first thing that I would say is, doesn't matter where you're at. This is a relevant conversation for you, unless you plan on, like I said, doing sales and crawling through attics when you're 50. You got to learn how to be able to get leverage. You got to learn how to be able to train people and to hire people.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So what are some ways to do that? Because I 100% agree. I mean, if you're just keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. We all know, especially in our industry, there's a limit. There's only so many hours in the day that a single person can put in and see a return on that.
Awesome. Yeah. So it comes down to a couple of different things. The first thing is you just have to have an eye for it. So you need to be looking for opportunities to meet people. All right. So just like when we were talking about the 5 essential networking connections, we talked about in the previous podcast, that most people just look for ideal clients. Like, are you a client? No. 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 And they'll go to a networking event and they'll be like, do you need an HVAC? Do you need services? Right? Do you need an AC unit? And if the person says no, then they're dropping a business card in their lap and they're going to the next person as quickly as they can, because they haven't trained their eye to look for the other 4 essential networking connections, right? The referral partners, the influencers. So again, go back and check out that episode if you haven't, through Close It Now. But it's the same sort of a thing when it comes to, team building and training people. Do you have an eye? Are you looking for people who know how to sell? Right. So that's the very first step, is you have to start to train your brain and say, where do I find people like this? If your company has recruiting events, then great, like, bring people to them. And people get so caught up on, like, how much am I getting, paid for this? How much do I get when I bring in somebody? And you might be able to work out something with the owner of the company that if you bring somebody in, that you get some sort of compensation for that.
Sure.
But again, think like a business owner, right? If the company grows, it's good for you. Sometimes you get this scarcity mentality of like, well, somebody else comes into the company, then they're going to be taking my leads and my appointments, right? And it's the wrong way to think. You bring people in, you get good at training. I promise you, there's going to be more opportunities for you at a company.
What's that old expression? A rising tide raises all ships.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the person who does more today than what they get paid will soon get paid more than what they do. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've adopted that from early on in my career. I've always, done more, take it basically, just like you're saying, taking ownership and treated everything I touched as if my name depended on it, not necessarily the company name. And, it's amazing. It's what happens when you make a life goal to give more value than you take.
I love it. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that you've got an eye for it, that you're looking for it. All right. The second thing that you want to make sure that you're doing is, the saying that I use is, become the person you want to attract. So if you want to attract somebody into your business, if you're a business owner, if you're in the field and you're training people, right? Are you practicing what you preach? If you're preaching follow up, and you're not doing any follow up, you're not going to attract what you teach, you're going to attract what you are.
Mhm.
Right. So you want to make sure that you're becoming the person you want to attract. And I actually learned this from John Maxwell, leadership author, who wrote the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and was fortunate enough to be in a kind of a round table with a small number of people, and got to be able to meet John through Zoom. And he's going through an exercise, and he said, make a list. What are the 10 characteristics? What are the 10 qualities that you want in HVAC professionals in your team?
Mhm. Sure.
So take a minute and do that. Like, think about, even if you write down 2 or 3, what are some of the characteristics that you want, that you're looking for? Is it somebody who's coachable, somebody who's hungry? Is it somebody who's self-motivated? Is it somebody who follows up? Like, just make a list of what are those characteristics that you want. And then you had to share them. And I was like, oh yeah, here's what I want, right? Somebody who's self-motivated, somebody who's a leader, somebody who's faith-driven, and like somebody who's, takes time with their family, and that they play all in business time. I made my whole list, man. I was like, it's a good list. I'm gonna get some good people. And then he says, now turn the page over. And now I want you to rate yourself on a scale of 0 to 10 in all of the areas you just wrote down.
Ooh.
Oh, John, you're doing me dirty right now, right? Like, how leadable, how coachable am I? How strong am I in my faith, right? How much do I follow up? Am I a self-starter? One of my big ones is resourceful. Am I resourceful? Right? Am I waiting around for somebody to solve this problem for me or that problem for me, or am I solving it myself? Right? So the idea is become the person you want to attract. Are you developing yourself daily into the person you want to attract? And it's one of the great things about this Close It Now community, right? I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, that you guys are here and you're learning and you're becoming the person that you want to attract. So thing number 1 is have an eye for it. Thing number 2 is you want to become the person you want to attract. And thing number 3, I'm talking mostly right now to the business owners on the line. I said that that regardless of where you're at, that this whole conversation, applies to you. I'm going to talk for a second to the business owners.
Sure.
If you're a business owner listening in right now, right? Listen to the podcast. Maybe you're at the gym, maybe you're on your way driving somewhere. Like, pay attention. If you want to attract high-level people, you will never retain someone with the same or greater level skill than you have unless they have the same or better opportunity that you have to grow a company.
Wow.
Let me say that again. You will never retain and attract somebody with the same or higher leadership ability as you unless you give them the same or better opportunity as you have in the field.
Wow.
So you have to create an environment, right, where rather than having this old school belief around business of like, the more that goes out, the less that comes to me. Rather than thinking about how can I lower my expenses, including lowering my commissions, right, that I pay to the field so that I can keep more of the pie. That's backwards. Is backwards. You got to think about, how can I give higher commissions? How can I give higher levels of ownership? How can I give higher levels of freedom? Right. In coaching with Dave in the solar company, as a for instance, one of the first things in our consulting that we did together is said, how can we create a owner's profit pool where people who are not owners of the company, right, can get to a certain place. If they do enough volume, if they produce enough, they can actually get paid in some of the percentages of the profit of the company.
Wow.
And you might say, well, but it's my company and I take on the risk. And listen, they're going to leave. You're going to lose them anyways. You will never retain somebody long-term unless they have the same or better opportunity as you. And so you can spend your time taking 5 years, 10 years, training somebody, coaching somebody, showing them everything, and you're just training your competitors unless you give them the same opportunity that you have. So find some sort of a way to be able to incentivize people, right? Reward that loyalty, because there's a point where people come in and you're doing a lot more for them than they're doing for you.
Mhm.
But over time, that pendulum starts to swing, and it gets to a point where they're doing more for you and for your company than you're doing for them. And they could very easily go start another company. And they got to wake up every day and decide, am I going to be loyal to you, the business owner, or am I going to go get the same opportunity that you have?
Mhm.
Because they can't have both.
Sure.
So as a business owner, you got to find ways to not make your people make that choice every single day, right? Give them the same opportunity that you have. Find some sort of a way. Hire a coach if you need to. Figure out a way, right, that you can give
Mhm.
them the same opportunity. And where your goal is, how do I pay more money to the field? How do I have more success stories inside of HVAC? And usually, you know, in the path and the process of doing that, you're going to scale your business and scale your profits to a point where all of a sudden your costs are actually lower as a percentage, and so you can pay more out and still be able to make a lot of money and be able to retain higher quality people.
Wow. This is, there's an old adage in the industry that I've heard for years and years, and honestly kind of forgotten it a little bit until you're mentioning this. The adage is, so many business owners complain and say, well, what if I train my people and they leave? And then, of course, the rebuttal to that is, well, what if you don't train them and they stay? We know which is worse. But at some point, that's kind of a paradox, because we know that is what we're battling against, is getting to that place of we've trained them enough, and they see us driving the nice car because the business has grown, and now they want to go buy their Ferrari. So I love this conversation, man. Dropping bombs today. Literally, this concept is turning if any of you out there listening are actually hearing what Coach Jimmie is saying here, talk about turn our industry on its head. This is how the Ken Goodriches of the world and so many others, that have scaled to such amazing volume and huge, huge size. This is the concept they've adopted. Now, I don't know anyone else who's grown a company to over $100 million in 5 years. So, man, this is so applicable to what we do. So, man, dropping bombs today, man. I love it. I love it.
Well, here's a mind bender for you. When I started coaching Dave, he was in the field knocking doors selling solar. All right. And so what it means is that there is a company owner that Dave was working for, and they were just keeping all the profit. Dave was investing his own money in advertising to get his own appointments in solar, and he just was underappreciated. And people who were at the company were just keeping most of the profits.
Uh-huh.
And so he didn't want to create his own company. He created his own company out of a necessity. And he became the owner that he wished he had. He became the owner that he wished that he was working under. And so in creating his own company, there was just a little while ago here, you've heard that company did $134 million last year. I believe that $89 million a year before that. I believe they'll do $1 billion in calendar year 2022. So, a ton of growth. And yet, right, Dave, the owner of Apricot Solar, is putting so much money back into the field, right? Spending money on appointments, spending money on commissions, and putting a whole bunch of money back into the field, to the point that just recently, one of the sales associates inside of the company literally bought a Ferrari for Dave.
Oh my gosh, geez.
We're talking like hundreds of thousands of dollars, like it's a Spider, super nice car, right? And here's the thing: Dave could have bought himself one multiple times over as the owner of the company, right? He literally spends more than that in advertisement every single month to keep people in the field, their calendars full with appointments. So that's the level, right, that he's giving at, and so there's somebody in the company that's like in the field making the kind of money that they can afford to go buy a Ferrari and give it to the owner to thank the owner for what they're doing. So if you're an owner right now, like, how can you be in that sort of a position? How can you give so much to the field, right? That people in the field are buying you gifts, right? And when you do that, when you create that space, that's how you'll be able to scale, rather than you train somebody, they grow, they bring in sales, they leave, they start their own company, they take a handful of people with them, right? Then you say, hey, anybody who wants to stay, I'll make you the new leader, and you work with them and you rebuild a team. And so you have this replacement model rather than this scaling model. Okay, so
Wow.
if you're an owner in the room, understand this. It's easier right now than ever before for somebody to start their own business. It's easier now than ever before for somebody who's a salesperson in your organization to think that they know what it takes to run a business. Now they don't, and it's harder, and you're the last one to get paid, and we know that. Okay, but that's
Sure.
not what you're fighting against. You're fighting against somebody, reading a blog post, watching a YouTube video about you should go start your own company, and then they leave, and now it's hard for them to come back. It's hard for them to build their own business. And so just as an owner, I'm begging you, find ways, if you really want to scale, if you really want to grow, right? My coaching hat on right now, find ways that you can show people high levels of appreciation, find ways that you can give people the same opportunity that you have. Maybe that's a profit sharing pool. Maybe that's actual, shares or ownership of the company, but you have to find ways, it's just different now than it used to be 10, 20, 30 years ago. You got to find ways to be able to give people the same opportunity that you have if you really want to scale.
Right. That's it. I mean, what's all of the studies where they say people stay for culture, not because of the income necessarily or anything else. They stay because they like it, not because of anything else. And that's they like the people they work with, they like the leadership, they like the culture. And man, giving them that piece of, wow, what a crazy concept, everybody listening. Giving your company, your individuals who are performers, a piece of ownership at some level. What a better way to and to develop the culture that they can become owner in the company, to develop that owner mindset. Wow, this is thinking on a different level. This is that next level thinking, like I was mentioning. I love having Mr. Jimmie J's on this podcast because it forces us to think differently to get different results. So wow, that was powerful today, brother. I'm just so stoked that you had a few minutes to share with us. My gosh, man.
If you're an owner on the line, like, it doesn't have to look like giving away ownership. Okay. What it needs to be is that they have to have the same opportunity that you have if you want to be able to retain people at the same or higher, levels of leadership that you have. And if you're somebody in the field right now, like, fair warning to you. Okay. I've worked with a lot of businesses. Most businesses fail in their first 5 years. And a lot of people that go out and they try to start their own business, they're good at sales, but they try to go out, and all of a sudden, they got to deal with payroll. They need an HR department. They got to be able to float money for ads. They have to spend time doing income statements and balance sheets and statements of cash flow. And there's all this behind the scenes stuff that you don't know about. So if you are not an owner on the line, like, you want to think like an owner. You want to think about, what can I do to grow this company? Even if you don't own it, act like you're an owner. Act like, respectfully. Don't be trying to do things your own way. If there's business owners tell you to do it one way, do it that way. It's their business. But what can you do to add value to the company? What can you do to grow the company? And if you're thinking that way, and you've got an abundance mentality, understand that there will always be a position for somebody that knows how to create profit in the company. And so just treat it like an owner. And fair warning, it's a lot of work. If you go to start your own company, maybe you're great at the sales part and you think you can do everything. And then you spend none of your time in the field, right? You spend all of your time doing all this
True.
stuff. And, in the example I just gave, people in the field selling solar up until recently all drove way nicer cars than the owner of the company did, right? Because he's reinvesting money back into the company. Probably the same thing inside of the HVAC world. So if you're in the field, being an owner is not all it's cracked up to be. If you're owning a company, you want to make sure that they have the same or better opportunity as you. That's it. Whether that's ownership, whether that's a profit sharing pool, whether that's, their ability to make money with commissions, just structured in a way where they've got upward mobility, where they're not tempted to leave and go and make a bad decision trying to start something from the ground up.
I love it. I love it. That's excellent wisdom, and especially from somebody who's worked with so many companies, as I know you have. So we are wrapping up today. I know you've got to, thank you for your time. I know you've got to bounce here in just a few minutes. In the last few minutes, one question is, how does everybody get a hold of you? How do they contact you the best? And to find out, some more about your coaching or whatever you're offering right now. I know you do so many things. And last, few parting words that you'd like to leave with us. And thank you so much for being on the episode today. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, my pleasure. If people want to get a hold of me, probably Facebook's the best way. I'm in the Close It Now Facebook group. So just search Jimmie J's in the private Facebook group, and you can probably find me that way.
Everybody, that is Jimmie. There's no Y. Yeah.
So you can find me there. You can if you can't find me, I'm sure you can shoot Sam a message, and we can get connected up that way. As far as coaching goes, I do have a handful of coaching clients, but I'm not actively taking on coaching clients right now. And like I said in the intro, my intention is inside of the solar space to create 12 solar millionaires, meaning 12 people who've made $1 million in commission per year over the next 12 months. So obviously crazy focused in order to be able to make that happen. And if there's somebody on the line, and I know salespeople know salespeople. So if you know somebody who's a documented closer, basically, for me, really what I do is rather than trying to train people from the very beginning of the road and help them become into great salespeople, the only way that you're able to create 12 solar millionaires in 12 months is finding people that already have a high competency when it comes to sales, when it comes to leadership. So if you know somebody, like I said, salespeople know salespeople. So if you know somebody who's a documented closer, doesn't have to be in the solar industry, whether they're in the pest space, or if they're in door knocking, or if they've done roofing companies or anything like that. If you know of a documented closer who's unhappy, I always think about it like kind of the single A, double A, triple A, MLB, right? I think about it kind of little terms like that of if there's somebody who's got great numbers in single A, they get called up to double A. If they got great numbers in double A, they get called up to triple A. So if you know somebody who's got like their closing statistics, their closing numbers, and not based on what they say, but that they're documented, that they've been closing consistently for a while, and they think they might be a good fit for the solar industry, I definitely love to to talk with them. So that's how you can get in touch with me. And Sam was talking about maybe doing a Facebook Live or something to answer some some Q&A in the group. So if there's any way I can be of service to you, in the HVAC industry, I'm definitely happy to do that. And that would be, I guess, my final tip is, as you're meeting people in other industries, as you're meeting other salespeople or meeting people in the Close It Now group, don't be trying to, recruit those people into your company. But be building long-term relationships and finding ways to help each other out.
Right.
And you never know, right? You could learn something from them. They could be a referral partner. They could refer you your next sale. They could refer you your next closer. So build long-term relationships for life. And that's probably my best advice.
I love it. I love it. Long-term relationships for life. There's an old book called How to Swim with the Sharks Without Getting Eaten Alive by Harvey Mackay. So here's the book recommendation for the day, springing right out of that. Of course, it's written in the days of Rolodexes, but the value of it carries through even till today, and it's exactly that. So thank you for being on the podcast today. It has been just so mind-altering, mind-bending, like you said, and just the value that you brought is much appreciated. Everybody, make sure to, and like Jimmie mentioned, if you're not already in the Facebook group, go join the Close It Now Facebook group. You can find a link directly from the website, which is closeitnow.net, closeitnow.net, and and if you want to get a hold of Jimmie directly, shoot me an email, sam@closeitnow.net. That's SAM@closeitnow.net. So that's website and the email. Pop me a message. I'm happy to get you connected. And yeah, everybody go out there, use this knowledge, implement it immediately, because remember, success happens at the speed of implementation. All right, guys and ladies, go save the world one heat stroke at a time. It's been a pleasure, Jimmie. Thanks, man. I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.
All right. Thanks a lot, everybody. Become the person you want to attract.